Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Dragon Boats of the Four Seas. This is the first game from Meeple Games, from Daryl Andrews' new company, and it's on Kickstarter right now.
It is a 2 to 4 player game that uses 3 main mechanisms within the game. The first and most obvious is the bidding aspects of the game. You're going to be using your discs almost as workers to go into one of the 5 different offering spaces to bid on these particular offerings to be able to turn them in to get something from them. The second main mechanism is the set collection. You're going to be moving your farmers out from the main island to these outlying islands to collect tiles that act almost like a set collection and victory points. And the final thing within the game is almost like a small pseudo area control, because when you place your farmers out in these locations at the end of the game, you're getting victory points if they're close to one another.
Yeah, the game moves very fast, so the area control thing is a little truncated, so it feels a little bit smaller, but it's definitely there for sure.
Let's go ahead and talk about the main game board. It's broken into a number of different regions. You have the main island. This is where all the offerings are going to take place. You have the mountain terrain up here. This is where you're going to be sending your farmers to move, gain benefits, and also get these bonus tiles that are kind of give you either ongoing effects or maybe end of the game scoring options that aren't typically available to everyone else. And then you have the 4 different islands on the outside. Yeah,
the islands are what you're going to be taking the dragon boats to. You're going to take your farmers out there and collect those tiles for set collection, like we said.
We should note also, as you were saying, dragon boats, these are the dragon boats. Obviously, this is a prototype. Everything is going to change. Make sure you check out the Kickstarter page, because the art here is not 100% final at this point. Speaking of the dragon boats, when you look at the dragon boats, they're going to be broken into a number of different sections. At the very top, it's going to tell you the beats, or how fast the boat moves. At the end of a round, typically these boats are going to move out to the islands, and they're going to move according to the higher number of beats. Also, it's going to say how many people are required to move the boat. In this case, all of the boats that we have on the table require 2 farmers on them. They have a number of spaces for the different people. These do a couple different things. One, the person in the front of the boat is going to get off the boat first. The person in the back of the boat is going to steer the boat, because they can go to one of 2 different locations. And the person in the middle has to pay 1 less offering to be able to board the boat.
So where are you taking the boats? You're taking those to the islands on the outer sides of the board. You're going to take those to acquire these tiles. Like we said, these are going to serve a set collection at the end of the game. There are some that are 1 to 3 set collections, and there's some that are 1 to 4 that score a little bit differently. You're going to go out there with your farmers, move those farmers along this path, and take up locations in these spaces, which also involves the area control a little bit.
We'll talk about that in a moment as well. Each player is going to have a player board in front of them. This is going to house their money track. The money is used to make bids, obviously, in the offerings areas of the board. You have 2 spaces where you can take private actions in order to acquire money a little bit easier. It has all the phases at the bottom, plus a storage, because at the end of the round, any of the offerings that you don't give out, you have to discard over 3. So over here is the round. Now this is interesting, because at the start of the game, there are 6 cards that you see here. Each of these cards, starting in turn order, we're going to place our 4th disc. Everyone's going to start with 3 of these bidding discs. However, their 4th one is going to be placed on one of these in turn order. This is the round that you actually get that disc back, but the further that you, or the later in the game that you get your disc back, the more resources you start the game with, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mechanism. And right above that, we have food cards and treasure cards. These are going to serve a couple different purposes. The food cards are going to let you travel a little bit further on those paths as you explore.
The last thing we need to mention are the bonus cards down here. You're going to notice 4 different offering spaces. These are to collect one of the 5 different resources, or possibly treasure or food. But the last space here has a unique ability. One, it allows you to trade one particular offering for another one, or it allows you to give up one of your treasure to gain a bonus card. Now, these bonus cards do a variety of things. They could add a card to your set collection. They can move boats. They could swap boats around. They could even give you into the game scoring points, just like these bonus tiles up in the mountains do as well.
Yeah, they're very similar to the wisdom tiles in the mountains, and those serve the same purposes. There's going to be end of game scoring. There's going to be immediate effects and ongoing effects.
The game's going to take place over 6 different rounds that you see here. At the end of one of the rounds, you're simply going to flip this card over, noting that that round is over. So how does the game work? It's very simple. You just got to look at your player board here. There's 4 phases. The very first phase is the bid phase. This is kind of, I don't want to say worker placement, but it is kind of a worker placement thing, because in turn order, you're going to take one of your discs and you're going to place it on one of these 5 different areas. And that is a bid for you to be able to go in a particular turn order to grab an offering or to be able to do this. Now, what's going to happen here is you're going to pick any one of these locations and place your disc down. Now, in turn order, everyone's going to do the same, placing it in any location that they so wish. The trick here is that this stack can only be 3 high. Once it's hit 3 high, no one else can place on that. And once we go through the entire round and everyone's placed all of their discs, we are then going to move to the pay phase, and this is unique.
Yeah, the pay phase is where you're going to be paying for these offering tiles. So, how does paying work? Well, if you were the first one in there, you're only going to pay 1 coin for whatever tile is left at that point. If you're on top or in the 3rd position, you're going to pay more, but you get your first choice of the tiles. So that's basically how that works. You're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, from top to bottom on each of those stacks, and then move on to 5. And that concludes the entire pay phase.
Yeah, so when you pay, you simply remove that. It comes back to your area. In this case, orange would pay 3, and they get their first pick of that. Now, what happens if you can't actually pay for the good that you want?
So yeah, if you can't pay for your goods when you're there, and that can happen for sure in the game, you will get a consolation of receiving 1 coin. It's not quite as good as your private action here, but at least you're getting something.
One of the other huge benefits of paying more money and paying on the 1 spot compared to the 2 spot is every time that you pull your disc off, you get to take one of your farmers and place it. Now, there's a couple different places that you can place your farmer. Obviously, you can place them on any of the boats. I'll get back to that. But the other option is to one of these 2 mountain locations. When you place on the mountain locations, it can only hold 1 farmer at a time. And you have to give up 3 goods of any type that you so wish. During the exploration phase, which we'll explain in a moment, it's going to allow that farmer to kind of walk down the mountain path, maybe gain some resources, but also to gain one of those bonus tiles, which are really important. But the other thing that you can do is actually move your farmer to one of the boats.
Right, you're going to place in the mountain or on the boats as you take these discs off. And that's not an obligatory action. You can do it if you want to, but you're going to want to do it. So on the boats, you have to have the offerings available to give to the boat. Now remember, if you're the first person on the boat and you want to take that middle spot, as you can see right here, the icon shows that you don't have to pay one of those goods. So you're able to get your guys on the boat with a little less in terms of offering.
And you're going to move through those stacks 1 through 5, people taking their actions, paying for those goods, until we get to the 3rd phase, and that's the explore phase. Now the explore phase is going to happen in 2 phases. The first is the mountain and then the boats. And the mountains are going to happen from A and then B. Each of the farmers that are in these locations have a native movement of 3. Now, they can move 1, 2, 3 as such, collecting anything along the path that they so happen to hit. They can instead move 1, 2, and then, or 1 space, and then move onto one of these tiles that are connected to that area, collecting that tile, but it permanently locks that farmer into that location. Now, the good thing about having those farmers in those locations, obviously you're getting resources as you go, obviously you're getting these tiles, but there is a small area control bonus that you get at the end of the game for having your farmers adjacent to one another.
Exactly, and you can use food. This is one of those areas where you can use food to move a little bit further. So like Jeremy said, you could move 1, 2, 3, collect all 3 of those bonuses, and then use food to move your 4th space in to collect one of those tiles. Now, if you don't end up in a land space, if you end up on the path and you just want to collect a bunch of bonuses, you can do that. But then your farmer comes back to your supply, so you're not going to be leaving it out there for the end of game scoring.
There's a lot of variety in these mountain tiles. This tile allows you to move your farmer a native 4 spaces, period, for the rest of the game. Every bonus card is worth an extra victory point at the end of the game. Every time you go over a treasure, you gain an extra treasure. So they're all very, very valuable depending upon the strategy that you wish to use. Now, the other thing that happens once the explore phase in the mountains is done, you then go to the boats. And the boats are dependent upon how many farmers are on this particular boat, so to speak.
Yeah, so you're going to take a look. Like we said at the beginning, each of these boats requires 2 farmers in them to move. And they can be 2 of your own farmers or 2 of any farmers. You're going to look, and if all of the ones that have 2 farmers, you're going to look at those beats, the speed of the boat. The fastest ones are going to go, and this is how each one works. Say this one, for instance, is a 40. Whoever's in the back of the boat gets to steer. Now, if there's someone not in the 3rd seat, this person furthest back is going to steer. There's 2 options. You're going to go to one island or the other. So once they choose, then the first person in the front of the boat is going to get off. And just like the mountain path, They can move a native 3 spaces, jump on a tile just like we described in the mountain. The difference being these tiles are not those bonuses and end of game scoring. These are the set collection tiles.
Yep, and again, your farmer is going to stay in that position until the end of the game. Once these farmers come off and collect those, the boat's simply going to go away, and a new boat's going to populate that space with a new beats per minute, new resources that it requires. The last phase of the round is the storage phase. You're going to notice on your player board that you have room for 3 different offerings. Anything over that actually goes back into the pool, so you're going to lose those if you don't use them that round.
Yeah, and you're going to do that round after round for 6 rounds. Now, the thing you have to remember is each round, remember, we each have an extra disc on this. So if you get to round 2, you're going to flip this over at the end, but you need to take this disc off at the beginning. That player is going to have 4 bidding discs for this round. That's going to give you a little more opportunity to not only go through the 1 through 4, but also down to the 5.
At the end of the game, after the 6th round, people are going to add up all of their points. Now, the points are scored in a variety of different ways. The first thing that's going to happen is the set collection portion of the game.
Yeah, the set collection, like we said, there's 2 different types. There are these 1 to 3 tiles, and there are some 1 to 4 tiles. The 1 to 3, they work the same way. If you have one of these, it's 1 point. 2, they're each worth 2. 3, they're each worth 3. And that's as much as you can. Then you have to start a new set. Same thing goes with the 1 through 4s, but these go up to 16 points if you have 4 of them.
You can also score for adjacency for your farmers. It works in the same scoring fashion as those. If you have 1 farmer, that's 1 point. If you have 2 farmers, they're each worth 2 points. And if you have 3 farmers, they're each worth 3 points, but they have to be adjacent to one another.
Right, and note that any of the spaces around the board only allow up to 3 next to each other, so you're only going to max out at 9 points there.
Some of the bonus cards are also going to have an in-game condition on the bottom. Those are also going to score you victory points according to what you may have collected or what you may have positioned your farmers throughout the entire game. And then for each remaining treasure and offering that you have, you're going to score 1 additional point for those. And that's the end of the game.
Yeah, and it moves along quickly, and you get a little bit of a taste of all of those different mechanics every single round. It starts with the bidding, and then it moves on to moving out to grab those things for the set collection, and at the same time, getting your farmers placed for that area control.
So that is Dragon Boats of the 4 Seas. It's from Meeple Games, their very first game, 2 to 4 players. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.